Welcome to FXStreet. If you like what we're talking about, you like the content we are producing, you want to be updated on a regular basis, head on over to YouTube to the FXStreet channel and hit the subscribe button. Additionally, you can follow me individually on Twitter at JustAnalysis1. Taking a look at MATIC or Polygon today, it's had a pretty nice bullish break over the last few days, really. When you go back to the beginning of November, you had this rising wedge pattern, and it's still there. It hasn't gone away. But there was a nice spike above it late October. Then really going through the first third of November, it dropped all the way down through. And rising wedges are exceptionally bearish patterns, and some of my rising wedges and falling wedges are kind of my bread and butter patterns because they have such a high positive expectancy rate of working out. And I think if you read Thomas Bukowski's work, he kind of goes into a ton of, not kind of, he does go into a ton of detail over how powerful these patterns are. But a rising wedge, in a nutshell, is extremely bearish, and it has explosive price action to the downside. But when they fail to initiate that downside pressure, the upside potential is sometimes greater. Now, Polygon has tested the breakout of this now for the second time, or you could say the third time. But the move here, we had a close above that wedge yesterday, and then when you continue on today, you can see that MATIC has pushed as much as 10% higher on the day, but now we are just trading a little bit below at 3.4%. There is a little bit of concern with how much higher it can go, especially when we look at the peaks that have developed. You do have some, it's not there yet, but it is developing some bearish divergence. And so what would be nice to happen is, and maybe you could consider it to have already happened, is that the breakout higher here by MATIC, there should be some type of retest of that angle. And certainly it could come back down, because when you look at the Ichimoku levels, you have the Tenkan Sen, the Kijin Sen, and at the top of the cloud, Senkou Span A. All three of those levels are right there. And now there's a gap on the daily chart between the daily candlestick body and the Tenkan Sen. The Tenkan Sen really does not like big gaps between the bodies of candlesticks and itself. So it may just hang out up here for a while it comes back into equilibrium, where the Tenkan Sen creeps back up to the candlesticks, and then we'll kind of have to see what happens there. But as far as, where it's going from here, if we look at the weekly chart, we get a pretty good outlook of where it's going. When you look at the 2021 volume profile, and here's what's developing, because this is kind of a big deal, because it hasn't made a new all-time high yet. The last time it made a new all-time high was back on May 21st. All-time highs, no big deal. What matters most is where the closes are at. So the all-time highest weekly close was previously on the week of October 29th. And then you look at where we are now, we're approaching, if the weekly close stays around here, that is going to be another new historical high for the weekly close. But more important than all of that is what's present on this chart Ichimoku-wise. So, and I'm sorry, this might be a little bit longer video, but the ideal Ichimoku breakout requires the following. Future Senkou Span A needs to be above B, which it is. The close of the candlestick needs to be above the Tenkan Sen and the Kijin Sen. It is. The close needs to be above the cloud, which it is. And then finally, and most important, is that the Chikou span needs to be above the bodies of the candlesticks, which it is, and in open space, which it is. So already, if we get a weekly close, and if the weekly close is at least at or above 183, it will fulfill all of the requirements necessary for an ideal Ichimoku breakout. And that would cause a fairly substantial spike. And using the previous swing structure, it's going to show us the ABC is the fib expansion structure that I drew. So $2.8, $2.08, really it's close enough to $3. That's it's the next psychological number. That's likely where it's headed. So the 100% fib expansion rather, is at $2.83 range. And then above that, if you really want to be ambitious, then you get to the $4.15 level. That's the 1618 expansion. And the 1618 expansions, they have a pretty high probability of getting hit off of major swings, but certainly the 100% is the one that is probably going to be the next target that we'll see it hit. But that's what I see on MATIC on the long side of it. On the short side, not a ton. I mean, on the weekly chart at least, I'll be bearish if it drops down below the daily cloud. That would have to drop down. So Senko Span B is the hardest area to cross, and then close above or below in the Ichimoku system. It's the strongest level of support and resistance. If MATIC were to close at or below 134, to me that would be pretty bearish, and then you might see a flush below $1. I just don't see that happening at the moment. It still looks pretty strong and looks like it's setting up for another expansion move here higher. Thank you for watching. From all of us here at FX Street, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.